ladies and gentlemen, to the totally awesome podcast, the TAP, the podcast so bad, it's impossible for you to believe that you won't be able to survive without tapping out. I tried to tie it into the theme of this video, but I failed miserably. You know who doesn't fail miserably? Tom Cruise. That's who. Dude is what, 64? How old? Once again, I cannot film any kind of podcast without being woefully underprepared. Tom Cruise age. I put AFAE. What is Tom Cruise's AFE? He is 62 years old. My God, that is a gorgeous 62-year-old man. Anyway, this was an interesting start to the podcast. It's been a long time coming. The movie's been out for like a couple months, right? Or at least one. And I finally saw it a couple weeks ago, so it's not exactly fresh. I watched Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning, which is allegedly, can you hear the air quotes, allegedly, the final Mission Impossible movie, or at least the final one starring Tom Cruise, until they write him a check that has enough zeros on the end of it, which I'm pretty sure then we'll get a Mission Impossible 9 also starring Tom Cruise. Or if they make an MI9, he'll probably have some kind of cameo at some point. So I watched it, and it was my most anticipated movie of the year. And by that, I mean the only movie I was anticipating this year, because this year, holy crap, is this not 2024. 2024 was kind of a hot year for movies. You had Sonic 3, you had Dune Part 2, you had Nosferatu, you had, what was it? Longlegs. You had The Substance. You had so much good shit in 2024. 2025, we have practically nothing. Like, there's nothing coming. Well, I'm kind of interested in that new Superman movie. Not gonna lie. I might go see that. I don't know if I'm gonna do a TAP on that. I might mention it in a post-TAP, which I hope you guys enjoyed the post-TAP yesterday. But this episode is not going to have an annoying dryer going crazy in the background during the entire show. So I apologize for that yesterday. But I think it kind of added to the chaotic comedy that I bring to everything I do. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in the new Superman movie. I might go see that. I guarantee you my mom is going to want to go see that because she loves Superman. Although no one could ever replace Christopher Reeves in my mom's mind. Henry Cavill for life. Anyway, excuse me. And there's also that Fantastic Four movie, First Steps, that's coming out. And I'm not interested in seeing that at all, mostly because I just don't care about the MCU anymore. They fumbled Phase 4 and 5 so hard that I don't care. Like, they reeled me back in a teeny bit with Deadpool and Wolverine, but now like they just haven't done anything of note. For me at least, and I think for a lot of people, Avengers Doomsday, which I think is coming out next year or 27, I'm not sure. Avengers Doomsday is absolutely their last chance. Because if they can't stick the landing on that, then in my opinion, the MCU basically ends with Deadpool and Wolverine, or at the very least Spider-Man No Way Home, which on that front, I have heard that they're prepping for another Spider-Man movie starring Tom Holland, which is going to follow the events of No Way Home, I think it's called Brand New Day. So I'll definitely go see that. I'm always down for a Spider-Man movie. There has not been a Spider-Man movie that has come out that I have disliked. Yes, I like Spider-Man 3. Yes, I like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sue me and eat my ass. But anyway, the point of this video, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, also known as Dead Reckoning Part 2, also known as Mission Impossible 8, also known as Holy Shit, how is Tom Cruise still doing this when he's 62 years old, and how does he still look like he's in his late 30s? Scientology's a hell of a drug, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, before I really get into the movie proper, and which is going to be the girth of this video. I just love that word. Girth. The girth of this video. I do want to briefly touch on the entire series as a whole, because I only got into it because I knew that the last one was coming out, and it looked kind of interesting, so I wanted to catch up by watching the other 7 movies. And while watching the other 7 movies, I was like, holy shit, why have I not watched these movies before? Because they are pretty much all awesome. I like basically every Mission Impossible movie that exists. Even 2. I even like 2. And I know that that's the one people very much do not like. That's the John Woo one with the doves and the beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous, long Tom Cruise hair. And the slow-mo and the rock music and the craziness. It is so early 2000s, it hurts. I even really like that one. So I'm a big fan of Mission Impossible at the moment. As Andy would say, it is my current hyperfixation. Which he's not wrong. But, so yeah, before I get into Mission Impossible 8 and basically my thoughts on it, I'm going to run through the entire series real quick, and I want to rank my least favorite Mission Impossible movie to my favorite Mission Impossible movie here on this episode of TAP. So, a little pre-podcast before the actual podcast. Again, gotta do the entree before we get to the girth. This is going to be the girthiest podcast I've ever did do. I butchered the hell out of that sentence. But anyway, so starting at number 8, my least favorite Mission Impossible movie, this might be a controversial opinion. Mission Impossible 1. Alright, put your damn pitchforks down. As I stated, there is not a Mission Impossible movie that I dislike. I like all of them. But I like Mission Impossible 1 the least. It's by far the oldest. And it's fine. It sets the foundation for Ethan Hunt's character and why he is the way he is, as far as like how he puts his team above the mission, sometimes to everyone's detriment, and that's why we love him. But I don't know, like, just some of the editing and the directing just isn't crazy. I'm not super crazy about. It's one of those movies where it's one of those movies where the plot is not convoluted, but the way they go about giving you the plot makes it feel convoluted. There were a few times where I had to rewind the movie, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? Why are we doing this? Why is John Voight monologuing? I love John Voight, by the way. He's amazing in the National Treasure movies, all 2 of them. That's a movie right there. The first National Treasure movie, fantastic. One of my favorite movies. Book of Secrets, pretty good, but not as good as the first one. But I love John Voight. But yeah, there were several points in Mission Impossible 1 where I just found it hard to follow. And like I normally look up articles and just study and research movies that I'm interested in before, during, and after watching movies, because I'm one of those people that like I'm not satisfied with surface level knowledge when it comes to stuff like this, especially things that I'm interested in. I want to know every nugget of information I can ascertain. So when this is one of those few movies where I don't look up a Wikipedia article or a plot summary just for the hell of it because I just want to, because I just want to read about it. I looked up articles because I was like, okay, I'm kind of lost. What's happening? I don't know what it is about Mission Impossible 1, but it just comes across as very convoluted. Like it's not. The plot itself is not confusing, but the way they go about expressing the plot, translating the plot, transmitting it to the audience, just feels very convoluted, and I'm like, huh? What? And I didn't have this problem with any of the other movies. It was just the first one where I was like, okay, slow down. Can you say that in English, please? Also, some of the characters in MI1, I just didn't like I can't even remember the girl with the huge lips. That was John Voight's way younger than should be wife in Mission Impossible 1. She was just a nothing character that was kind of a love interest, kind of not, and it made it awkward because there was almost a love triangle, sort of, but not really. Honestly, all of my complaints about Mission Impossible 1 are very much nitpicks. Tom Cruise is fantastic in that movie. And the guy that plays Kittredge, who does not show up again until Mission Impossible 7, Dead Reckoning Part 1. He was great in the movie. I liked him because he knew that there was a mole in the IMF. He just thought it was Ethan Hunt, but he was wrong. But he he's a good guy that's put in a situation where it makes you think he's an asshole, but he's just trying to do his job. He's trying to do what he thinks is right. And those kinds of characters are interesting. And the whole Ethan Hunt trying to figure out who the mole is. Although I will say, him basically sending emails to the mole, that was not the most interesting thing I've ever seen in my life. But Vic Rames as Luther was great. The French dude that's who's the angry and firm and stern and blunt French dude in every movie he's in. He was funny. He brought the brute French humor. But the absolute, of course, the best scene in the entire movie is where they're infiltrating the CIA and that one dude keeps going to the bathroom to throw up and Tom Cruise can't make any loud noises. He's attached to a wire hanging from the ceiling while the French dude's holding him, and he can't touch the ground, and it's just super intense, and they don't say a word, and you're just... your anus is clenched so hard watching... Like, my anus was clenched really hard watching this scene, and I was like, oh. And actually, the dude that kept getting sick, that actually got in a lot of trouble because he had some secret intelligence stolen during that scene, and Kittredge said, "We'll send him off to who knows what his stand, just to put him at a post." That actually came into play in Mission Impossible 8. My jaw hit the floor when I realized who it was, but we'll get back to that later when I get into the meat of the matter of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. And the action was great. Some of the CGI of all the movies, this is the one where the CGI holds up, especially when we have a helicopter in a subway tunnel. That was a little ridiculous. But again, the movie came out, like 96? When did Mission Impossible 1 came out? Again, I'm never prepared for these. Mission Impossible 1. Oh, I was right, 1996. I was -1 years old. Yeah, no, Mission Impossible 1 is a good first movie. It sets the tone, basically gives you the rules, like the whole, this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds, and the whole, if you choose to accept it. Despite all of that stuff, all of the classic Mission Impossible stuff was basically set up in Mission Impossible 1. And I also give them kudos because the movie was based off the old TV show from like decades ago, where the main villain, John Voight's character, Jim Phelps, I believe his name is, he was the main character of at least one of those TV shows, and making him the villain of the first movie was a very controversial decision. I respect the balls. In making him the villain of the first movie. But yeah, it's my least favorite. It's a good movie. It's a good starting off point, but it's the one that I have revisited the least. And again, my biggest problem with Mission Impossible 1 is sometimes it just feels so convoluted. Like, I shouldn't have to rewind a movie to understand what's going on while I'm watching the movie. Make your shit simple. Not too simple to where you have to dumb down your art, but just be more clear in, like, when you're going through the planning stages or when a revelation is happening. Where I'm like, what? Did I miss something? Just, Mission Impossible 1's the only one that did that to me, and that's kind of a gripe. Number 7, my second least favorite, is Mission Impossible 2. This is most people's least favorite. I actually think it's better than Mission Impossible 1. It's so damn fun. It's so goofy and silly. I love it. I'm a sucker for the early 2000s. It's my favorite decade, or half decade, whatever. But basically, my brain is mentally stuck between the years 2002 and 2005. That is my zone. That is my comfort era, I guess. So, yeah. And, yeah, Mission Impossible 2 came out in 2000. But it is such early 2000s energy, and I love that shit. I love the butt rock. I love Tom Cruise's hair. Tom Cruise's hair is the best character in that movie. I swear to God. And the action, while there's way too much slow-mo, I felt like I was watching a Zack Snyder movie at points. The action was insane and ridiculous. One thing I will say that Mission Impossible 1 did better than Mission Impossible 2 was the actual execution of missions. Like, it felt like a smarter movie, whereas Mission Impossible 2 was like, hey, guns, shoot, 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 explosion, slow motion, rock music. I will say, what I like more about 2 is it's more fun than 1. And I never was lost as far as, okay, what's happening in this movie? At no point was I lost during this movie. And Mission Impossible 2 has one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. It is so genius. I didn't see it coming, and when I realized what was happening, I nearly jumped out of my chair. It's when Tom Cruise switches faces with that one dude who gets part of his thumb cut off early in the movie. He switches places with that dude, and the main villain, Sean Ambrose, or whatever his name is, he's like, oh, this is getting your gun off. And he shoots Tom Cruise, allegedly, several times and kills him. But then he notices that his thumb, he's like, hey, you're missing part of your thumb. And he realizes, oh my god, I shot my friend. And he's like, ah! Actually, I want to play his scream. His scream is hilarious. Alright, I found it. It's so ridiculous, but it's so entertaining. I love Mission Impossible 2. And the cherry on top of the sundae is who you think is Sean Ambrose's right-hand man running down the hallway with the Chimera virus. And he rips off the mask and reveals that it's Ethan Hunt, and the butt rock version of the Mission Impossible theme. Dude, I was laughing. I was cheering. That was so amazing. That is one of the best scenes in all 8 of the movies. That was so perfect. Yeah, it's very light on everything, but I think it's all the better for it. Oh my god, that movie's so funny. I love that movie. I can see why it's a lot of people's least favorites and a lot of people don't like it. I love it just for pure entertainment value. Number 6, my 6th favorite Mission Impossible movie is Mission Impossible 7: Dead Reckoning, or Dead Reckoning Part 1. I can also see why a lot of people put this more towards the bottom. Okay. I don't hate it, and I actually very much like it. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, but it's very similar to how I feel towards Dune Part 1. Dune Part 1 is pure setup. That is set up the movie. Where we get to the good shit with Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 is one of my favorite movies, but you need Dune Part 1 for context and why shit's happening. You can't have Dune Part 2 without Dune 1 Part... But my brain is now... Welcome to the Totally Awesome Podcast. This is the sound of me giving up mid-sentence. But you get what I'm saying? Alright, so Dead Reckoning Part 1 is setup and context for Final Reckoning, or Dead Reckoning Part 2, before they renamed it. So I get that, but that kind of does drop it down a little, because so much of Dead Reckoning, or Mission Impossible 7, or Dead Reckoning Part 1, whichever one of the 30 names that this movie has that you want to go with at this moment in time, it just kind of makes it feel a little lacking, because all it does is it just feels like a lot of build-up. There's some cool stuff in it, but it very much feels like, oh, this is the exposition movie for the final act. Where it's basically the first act of Dead Reckoning, which is not bad. There's like that the insane stunt where he drives that motorbike off the cliff and parachutes onto the train. Absolute batshit insanity. Like, how do you even think up a stunt like that? The action is fantastic, and one of the things people hate about this movie is the villain Gabriel. I'm actually going to defend Gabriel. I actually think Gabriel is more interesting than the entity. That's another thing I don't really care about Dead Reckoning or the Final Reckoning. I'm sorry, but at this point, I think an AI villain is lame. I just think that, yes, it's a real life thing, but the Terminator came out decades ago. Like, we already saw Age of Ultron. I'm sorry, but this is... And I get that they just can't do... which is another criticism I have of some of these movies. They do the nuclear warhead threat so many times in these movies. But I get that they're trying... Like, that we can't just have another dude for the finale. And the way that they did it... Like, I'm not saying that the entity was bad in Dead Reckoning or Final Reckoning. The entity was actually a very compelling villain. It's just the concept of... Really, the final villain of this franchise is AI. Really. Again, good... Lame concept, good execution. I'll give them that. Lame concept, good execution. But I like Gabriel. I don't know why everyone trashes this villain so much. Everyone's like, this is the worst villain in all the Mission Impossible movies. When the correct answer of who is the worst Mission Impossible villain, it's whoever the hell the villain was for Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol. That was the most forgettable villain in the entire series. He did nothing. He was just, I don't want them to stop my nuclear bomb! And that was it. So, but yeah, basically the concept of Gabriel, in my opinion, is genius. So basically, the AI thinks it's God, and Gabriel is basically the false, like, let's say the entity is the Antichrist. Gabriel in Dead Reckoning is basically the false prophet. Genius. I love that. That is such an interesting... Basically, the dude worships the entity and is the entity's servant. It's like the entity is Sauron, and Gabriel is the Witch King of Angmar, or Sauron, or whatever. The entity's Darth Sidious, and Gabriel is Darth Vader. So I loved him in Dead Reckoning. I actually thought that they kind of ruined him in the Final Reckoning. Because in the Final Reckoning, I don't even know what his purpose is, which I'll get to that. That's one of my criticisms of Final Reckoning. I liked him in Dead Reckoning, before they kind of made him a non-factor in the final movie. Where essentially the entity's like, why are you even here? You're useless to me now. And the entity's like, I'm the villain. You're in charge here. Wrong! I'm in charge! Me! I'm in charge here! That's basically what the entity was saying to Gabriel in the final movie. But anyway, but yeah, the only thing I have against Dead Reckoning is it just feels like nothing but setup. So that right there just lands it at number 6. It's not a bad movie. It's very good. There's some insane stunt work, and I love the whole last 40 minutes of the movie is absolute adrenaline. And I love Haley Atwell. It's kind of funny that Rebecca Ferguson's character, Ilsa Faust, was just in the movie to die to make Ethan sad. So that's literally the only reason why she wasn't, just to die, to put some heat on Gabriel, to make Tom Cruise want to kill him, just to insert some more drama there, which I think worked. But yeah, Dead Reckoning is number 6 for me. Number 5, I just mentioned it, Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol. This is a very good movie. This is a fantastic movie. I love just about everything about it. I love Jeremy Renner. I love Benji. I love Luther. The woman character, I can't remember her name, but she actually had a good arc in the movie. I really liked the movie. My only real 2 problems with it, the villain, who was, I can't remember what the actor's name is, and I'm pretty sure he passed away, which sucks, but he was Vigo in the first John Wick movie, and he was incredible in John Wick 1. In this movie, in Ghost Protocol, he did nothing! He was the most useless antagonist, and this was the first installment of how many nuclear warhead plots can we put in one franchise? Here's number 1. Which again, the villain being completely forgettable, and the reoccurring theme of, oh my god, nukes, those are like my only criticisms of Ghost Protocol. Of course, this is where we have the very, very iconic and famous Burj Khalifa set piece, which is, oh my god, that is so anxiety-inducing. I probably, if I would have been warned beforehand, I would have taken a Xanax before watching that entire sequence. I will say, I've never seen a franchise that have so many, oh my god, my asshole is clenched so hard, I'm going to break the seat I'm sitting in. Set pieces, so many scenes where I'm just holding my breath. I've never seen a franchise with so many of those, which is a good thing. Although, dear God, Mission Impossible, you're trying to give people heart attacks. But that was incredible. The action, this was really when the movies really found a style and a footing, because with Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3, those 3 movies had completely different styles, completely different directors, and they didn't really look like the question is, what is Mission Impossible? Well, they figured that out in Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. It's a very good movie, but it's my number 5, mostly because the villain was so... I can't even say he was lame. He was just nothing. Number 4. This might be controversial because a lot of people will have this at number 1. Mission Impossible 3. Mission Impossible 3 is really, really, really good. And in all honesty, I think the only reason why I have it low is because it took me a couple of years, but I'm kind of salty about J.J. Abrams and what he did with Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and I'll actually bring that up later, but I'm just kidding. Somewhat. I'm more annoyed with Disney than anything else. J.J. Abrams tried. But yeah, Mission Impossible 3 is really good. It was the first, super, deathly serious Mission Impossible movie. It introduced Benji. It had an iconic villain, probably the best villain of the series, portrayed by Philip Seymour Hoffman, also rest in peace. Dude, the whole movie is great. One small criticism, it's way too fast-paced. At some point you need to breathe. And I also don't like how, in Mission Impossible 2, you set up Ethan with Naya, or Nalia, or whatever her name was. Only for her to never be mentioned again, except vaguely referenced in, I think, Fallout. I think. So, and when we start Mission Impossible 3, he's on the verge of tears because Philip Seymour Hoffman, or Davian, is holding a gun to this woman's head, and all I'm thinking is, wait, what happened to the other girl? What happened to Naya, or Nyla, or whoever she was? The whole Sean Ambrose Chimera thing with the doves and the butt rock. What happened to her? Who's this woman? So that was kind of jarring, but they do introduce you to her, Julia, and they do a really good job with their relationship. All of the relationships that Ethan has had throughout these movies, I bought him and Julia the most. They had such a sweet romance. I really liked those two. And I kind of liked him and Ilsa Faust, but I was kind of like, Ethan, you belong with Julia, dude. You belong with Julia. What you doing? I get that she also has a dangerous alternative lifestyle like you do. So that's probably more. It's not even. It doesn't even promise more longer longevity because she fucking dies in the 7th movie. Spoilers. But anyway. Yeah, Mission Impossible 3 is great. It's really where the serious tone of the franchise. Honestly, Mission Impossible 3 succeeded when the series absolutely needed to succeed, because as much as I love 2, there probably wouldn't have been another Mission Impossible movie if Mission Impossible 3 wasn't so good. And it's so wildly beloved to this day. When I first started hearing about the Mission Impossible movies when I was growing up, all I heard about was watch 3 and then watch the ones after that. 3 is amazing, and then there's the next ones. And I never heard people talk about 1 or 2. And I know why now, but still. But yeah, Mission Impossible 3 is number 4. Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning, is my number 3. And I will explain why during the girth of this podcast, but I think it's really good, and I think a lot of the critics that are whining and bitching and moaning about it, including one of my favorite YouTubers ever, Jeremy Johns, I think they're wrong. But anyway, so I'll get into Mission Impossible 8, the very reason for this podcast, in a minute. Number 2, Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation is so good. It carries over from Ghost Protocol, sets up a new villain in Solomon Lane who I really like. I love the Syndicate. I love that whole anti-IMF thing. Just the whole idea is the IMF has basically been canceled. And Ethan Hunt is on the run because everyone thinks he's crazy because he's like, I've got to find the Syndicate. I've got to find the Syndicate. What is wrong with you? I've got to find the fucking Syndicate. What do you not understand? And everyone's like, easy there, Tom Cruise. Is the Syndicate in this room here with us? Is the Syndicate here with us? Here's a Xanax. I had one for the previous movie Ghost Protocol during the Burj Khalifa scene. I think you might need one, Tom. There is no Syndicate. Sit down, Tom. And the introduction of the movie where he gets a fake mission just to trap him, just so Solomon Lane can shoot that girl and basically flip him off. That was such a great introduction for him. And yeah, Rogue Nation is so great. That is such a good movie. Oh god. And it leads directly into number 1, Mission Impossible 6, my favorite Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible Fallout. This is another. Usually people's favorite is either Mission Impossible 3 or Mission Impossible 6 Fallout. Fallout is my favorite. I, for once, agree with the general consensus. Holy shit, Fallout is a fantastic movie. Everything about it. It carries over, in a realistic way, the events of Rogue Nation. Ilsa Faust comes back. Solomon Lane is also a villain. You have Henry Cavill, who you think is a good guy, but it's later revealed that Henry Cavill is revealed as a villain. Haha! I see what I did there. I didn't even mean to do that. My brain's just stupid, and words are hard. But God, the action was insane. Yes, it was another nuclear warhead subplot, but the way they did it was perfect. Bringing Julia back into it, just everything about Fallout is amazing. That helicopter chase at the end was insane. I don't even have the words to describe how much I love Mission Impossible Fallout. That is such a damn good movie. So, yeah, so my ranking, if we shall go back. Number 8, Mission Impossible 1. Number 7, Mission Impossible 2. Number 6, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Number 5, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Number 4, Mission Impossible 3. Number 3, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Number 2, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. And number 1, Mission Impossible Fallout. But now that I've got my ranking out of the way, now let's get into the Final Reckoning. The quote-unquote final Mission Impossible movie that we're ever going to get featuring Tom Cruise until they give him a check that has a lot of zeros on it. I have a bone to pick with the critics, because the critics were like, this isn't very good. The first hour sucks, and then it's good. Brosefi, sit down with your little notepad. I really loved The Final Reckoning. This is what Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, should have been. How is it possible that a franchise that is built around, holy shit, how is Tom Cruise not dead? How does that franchise have a better concluding chapter to a multi-film saga? How did it do that better than fucking Star Wars? Suck my ass, Disney. I hope you enjoyed the $4 billion that George Lucas gave you before he called you slave owners. But anyway, for those of you that are wondering, I've had a little bit of a change of heart. Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, it is now my least favorite Star Wars movie because, oh my god. I still don't hate it. There are still a lot of things in that movie that I like, but man, that was not a good ending. But that's another story for another time. The Final Reckoning is a good ending. It was such a good way to tie the entire thing together. It had callbacks and tie-ins that blew my mind. And also it had set pieces that blew my mind. When he finally got to the submarine in freaking Antarctica or whatever, wherever he was in the Bering Strait or whatever, and he could basically freeze to death at any moment. Dude, I was white-knuckling it that was like a good 30 to 40 minute long sequence where I was on the precipice of an anxiety attack, which is probably not very healthy. But holy crap, that was great. the entity was way more menacing and threatening. The fact that it was taking control of every country's nuclear... It was basically almost turning into Terminator 2, where, of course, in Terminator 2, Skynet wants to enact Judgment Day and release the nuclear arsenal on Earth to destroy the human race, and it actually does happen in Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. I actually kind of like that movie. I know a lot of people don't, but I actually like that one, and Terminator Salvation is also kind of... This is the podcast where, yeah, I'm going to talk about the Mission Impossible franchise, and Star Wars, and Terminator, and Superman, and the Fantastic Four, and Avengers Doomsday, and then circle back around to Mission Impossible at some point. Welcome to my podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It is very chaotic. But anyway, so, yes, I will say, I was like, oh my god, we're doing nuclear warheads. This is the third time. The threat is nuclear holocaust. We had that in Ghost Protocol. We perfected that in Fallout. Why are we back here again? But again, to my surprise, they actually did it very well. Like, I loved that since the U.S. was the final country remaining that was still in control of their nuclear arsenal, the entity hadn't taken control of it yet, they were literally going to nuke other countries before they themselves would get nuked. And to prevent World War III from breaking out, they were going to sacrifice an American city to placate the other nations. And the president of the United States was literally having to... What city am I going to destroy? Which city of the United States of America? Which citizens are we going to sacrifice? Bro, that was heavy shit. I was not expecting that. I was like, wow. That is some doomsday, funnily enough. That is some doomsday shit right there. Imagine to prevent a global nuclear war or some kind of World War III, you literally have to sacrifice millions of your own citizens to, like, see, we shot them. We shot us. Yes, we shot you, but you weren't you. The AI was you. You were a deep fake, so we shot us. So we cool? We cool? Wow, Joshua, way to break down that really disturbing and deep and dark plot point down to just memeing about it for a good 10 seconds. But yeah, I thought that was great. And there was a sense of finality to this. I've heard that said a lot. But there really was a sense of finality, especially when, spoiler, the movie's been out for like a month, so if you haven't seen it. When Luther died, I was like, yeah, this is the last. And for a while, I was like, oh my... Because I was half expecting Ethan to die at the end of the movie. And I was surprised that he didn't. He basically got to... go on his he basically got to walk off into the sunset, which kind of surprised me. But honestly, you don't need to end every story with the protagonist dying. So I'm kind of glad they kept him alive. Again, massive spoilers. And I love that, like, the biggest enemy he's ever faced, the entity which took control of the entire world's nuclear supply and was a microsecond away from destroying the human race, he, through Haley Atwell's character Grace, has the most dangerous thing he's ever faced confined to one small little glowing cube. That I loved that. He's like, yeah, I got you in my pocket, bitch. I love that. That is such an alpha male power move. Yeah, the most dangerous, the biggest threat the human race has ever faced is in my pocket. Is my bitch. When I get home, when we're done filming, I'm gonna jerk off on top of it. At least I would. Dude, if I was a super secret agent that stopped a nuclear holocaust 3 times, and the last time I stopped it, I also trapped an extremely dangerous global scale AI program that wanted to destroy everything and literally had its own false prophet in the previous movie. If I can find that fucker to a box, you're damn right I'd jerk off on top of it. Just to be a dick. In every sense of the word. Just to be an asshole. Okay, that tangent was interesting. But that does lead me to one criticism I mentioned it earlier. I liked Gabriel as basically the false prophet of the entity in Dead Reckoning, in MI7. In MI8, because he lost the key in MI7, basically the entity was like, "You're banished! You failed! You have failed me for the last time!" And has basically sent him away. Like, you no longer are fit to serve me. You're unworthy. And now he's like, you know what? I will control the entity for myself. Also, I'm not going to have hardly any screen time until I die by face planting on a plane while it's 100 feet in the air, upside down. They really kind of made him... some people have argued that gave him some more autonomy. But in my opinion, that just made him less interesting. He was just a dude. He was basically, like, it's like he was a bitter ex-girlfriend because the entity broke up with him. Like, this movie made Gabriel lame. I liked him in 7, because, again, the whole I'm the false prophet of the entity thing was very interesting. And I liked that Ethan was actually kind of scared of him. He was kind of shoehorned into Ethan's backstory, which I know a lot of people didn't like that, but I didn't mind it. What I minded was them making him kind of a bitch in the last movie. Like, he's literally just a bitter ex-girlfriend. He's the entity's bitter ex-false prophet in Mission Impossible 8. So he's barely even a villain. He's just another interested party. So that was lame. But, man, the callbacks, the tie-ins. First off, the main thing, the MacGuffin in Mission Impossible 3 that Ethan was going after was the rabbit's foot. And everyone was like, oh my god, it's some kind of virus thingy. It's a nuclear warhead. It's some kind of device that will kill a lot of people. Turns out, the fact that Ethan got it and gave it to whoever he gave it to, that led to the creation of the entity. When I heard that, I was like, oh my god, that blew my mind. Like, holy shit. Ethan is partially responsible for the entity. That honestly kind of saved the concept of the entity for me. Because again, I'm not overly fond of your final boss is AI. Where's Penguin Zero? Where's Moist Critical? You know exactly what clip I'm gonna pull up. All right, I got it. Hey Charlie, what is your grand epic final boss for this concluding chapter in the saga of whatever we're doing? What is our final boss, Charlie?
AI!
I expected more. Forgive me for my lack of enthusiasm. But again, Ethan being partially responsible for the creation of the entity, that honestly that absolutely fixes it, in my opinion. So that, I'm still not going to bump up Mission Impossible 7 to in the ranking, because it's still just a setup movie. Excuse me, I briefly had a hiccup. But it really does recontextualize Mission Impossible 3. So the next time I watch Mission Impossible 3, I'm going to be like, that's an AI he's holding in that bottle right there. An AI in the year of our Lord, 2005. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? 20 years later, that's going to come back and bite you right in the ass, Ethan. Maybe you should have just let Philip Seymour Hoffman have it. I don't know. Probably would have ended way worse. But anyway, so that tie into Mission Impossible 3 made my jaw drop. And it was one of those tie-ins, one of those kind of retcons, that makes sense, and it doesn't really screw with anything. Because again, what makes it work is in Mission Impossible 3, we never found out what the rabbit's foot was. We had the Benji's hypothetical, it might be the anti-god. This thing that could destroy everything. The anti-god. And it turns out to be an AI program that wants to launch a nuclear holocaust. So Benji wasn't wrong. Kind of. He didn't know, but he wasn't wrong. He was in the ballpark. So hats off to Benji. And another callback that made my jaw drop. In Mission Impossible 1, that wire scene where he can't touch the floor and they have to poison this one guard dude and he goes and vomits, and then when he comes back there's a knife on the table because when the French dude pulled Tom Cruise back up into that ventilator shaft, they dropped the knife and it landed on the desk, and Kittredge was like, yeah, send him to whatever the fuck is stand and have him at an outpost to whatever, fuck him. They brought him back and made him an integral character in The Final Reckoning. That, when I realized who it was, I was like, oh my God. Huh. And I can't remember. They were like in some kind of indigo or whatever country where they spoke a different language. They weren't Eskimos. I can't remember what people they were, but they were Arctic dwellers. And he had his own language with his own wife. And he was basically, hey, if you hadn't screwed that job up for me, I wouldn't have met my wife. So thanks. And he gave Tom Cruise back the knife he dropped in Mission Impossible 1. When he handed him the knife that he dropped in MI1, that right there was like, cinema. As the kids these days say, cinema. Pure cinematic genius. I loved it. I loved that callback. There was one callback that I did feel was kind of, I guess, whatever, if you say so. This cop dude. I can't remember the name of the cop in the movie, because he was in Dead Reckoning, and he was in Final Reckoning. But I will say this dude, what's his name? What's this actor's name? Once again, I am never prepared. MI8 cast. Let's see. What is this dude's name? What is this dude? Come on, Google. Come on, Google. Shia Wingham. Shia Wingham. Yeah. That he does not look like a Shia or Shia or whatever. That dude, every single thing I've seen him in, he's a cop. He was in the Joker movie from 2019. Guess what he was in that movie? He was a cop. He was in the really shitty Death Note live action movie. Guess what he was? He was a cop. He was in Mission Impossible 7 and guess what he was? He was a fucking cop! He's a cop in everything, I suppose. But it turns out the whole reason why he was going after Ethan Hunt, or why he was so motivated and was unwilling to put his full trust in Ethan Hunt, is because, dun dun dun, spoilers, he's the son of Jim Phelps. I literally just threw my microphone across the room. I was just so startled by this tidbit of information that I just could not restrain myself. And to get back over here, you landed on my lightsaber. So that I like that they found a way to tie it into Mission Impossible 1. Basically, they were trying to tie it into as many Mission Impossible movies as possible and make it relevant. Which, that's how you do a concluding chapter of a series. You don't just resurrect the main villain of the 2 previous trilogies and go, I don't know, shit happens. Somehow he returned. Yeah, no, I swear to God, if they brought back Jim Phelps, if John Voight was in this movie and it was somehow Jim Phelps survived, I literally would have killed myself in the middle of the theater. Literally. No joke. Don't make that a running gag in the final installment of long-running franchises. Somehow the first villain of everything returned. Leave that shit where it belongs, and it belongs in bad Disney movies. So, I that was the tie-in that I was kind of like, I didn't dislike it. I was like, alright, that's a thing. It's just the fact that this dude is a cop in every movie I've ever seen him be in, he just kind of annoys me. I'm like, can you be in a movie or a show where you're not a cop? Can you be something else? I get it. I don't know anything about this actor other than he plays a cop every movie I see him in, but do something else. Can you be something else in a what is your filmography? What other movies have you been in? Shia Wingham. Yeah, Shia Wingham. Filmography, let's see. What? Oh my God, I'm getting angrier. In 2000, he was in Tigerland. He was Private Wilson. Wow, government official related. Bad Company. He was a CIA agent. Wow, I'm so shocked. Let's see. In 2005, he was in Man of the House, and he was a Texas Ranger. Dude. Oh my God! In 2008, he was in a movie called Pride and Glory, Officer Kenny Dungan. And in Fast and Furious, he was FBI agent whoever's but Michael Stasek. And in Fast and Furious 6, he was the same FBI agent. And in 2015, oh my God, dude! He was in a movie called Leela and Eve, and he was a detective. Oh my God! In 2016, he was in a movie called Term Life. Detective Maddie... I think I found what this dude likes. I think that he has typecast himself. Holy shit, dude. We get it. You like playing a cop, or a detective, or a captain, or a sergeant of some kind. Holy shit. I mean, I get it. Jim Carrey is a crazy person in just about every movie he's in, but damn. Oh, I want to... oh, that's a movie you can't... Can I be a cop? Can I be a cop? You better make me a cop, or you're not gonna have a good day, sir and or ma'am. Him during every audition. But anyway, I got a little distracted with this man's fetish for playing a cop in movies. Yeah, this was really good. And Haley Atwell was great once again as Grace. Basically, she's somewhat becoming Ethan's protege. He's kind of starting to become his protege in Mission Impossible 7, and that continued in 8. So now she's going to be a part of the IMF. The whole thing with Kittredge was resolved, which again is another tie-in to Mission Impossible 1. One of my favorite things about Mission Impossible 8 was the various tie-ins to previous Mission Impossible movies. And a lot of people were really annoyed with how many flashbacks to previous movies were like in the first act of the movie. Look, this is the final chapter that's tying everything together, and it's trying to like, hey, every single thing you've seen up to this point is important, even Mission Impossible 2. And I respect that. I respect that. Once again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is what The Rise of Skywalker should have been, because it cared. It knew it was the end, and it wanted to be the end, and it wanted to be as good of a send-off as possible. And I still think it's hilarious that the most dangerous entity, literally, that Ethan Hunt has ever faced is now just in his pocket in a little glowing cube that I would absolutely jerk off on top of just to assert my own dominance. Don't know why I keep bringing that back up, but man, it is a little lengthy. Both, if you watch Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning back to back, that's like a solid 5-hour movie. It definitely does not need to be 5 hours. It is a lot. It is a lot to sit through. And there was one kind of goofy part where Ethan got into this tomb to speak to the entity directly, and it tried to brainwash him. That was kind of wacky. Not gonna lie, that was kind of wacky. I didn't hate it, but I was just like, that's just kind of weird. It's like you know how porn rots your mind. I guess it was trying to like rot his mind. I don't know. It was weird. I'm going to get in this tomb and put on this face mask and commune directly with the entity. Maybe it'll turn me into its next false prophet. I don't know. Since it broke up with Gabriel, and poor Gabriel's over here plotting his revenge. He literally wants to be a controlling boyfriend. I still think that what they did with Gabriel's character, especially the way he went out. The way he went out was kind of cartoonish. It was very, very silly. But that whole scene where he's trying to get control of the aircraft that they're on, and he keeps... How is Tom Cruise still alive? That's what I want to know. That is what I want to know. Like, holy crap. The stunts in this movie were insane. The sense of finality was there. It was action-packed. Everything made sense. I loved the tie-in to the other movies. Was this as good as Rogue Nation? Nah. I think Rogue Nation's better. It does not even sniff Fallout's jockstrap, in my humble opinion. But it's still a really good movie, and I think a fitting conclusion to the Mission Impossible series. And I'm glad I saw it. Although I must admit, I may or may not have watched it on a website of questionable legality. I wish I would have saw it in theaters, but it was in the middle of me having severe car problems, so I didn't really have time or the money to go to see it in theaters. Which, if I didn't have any car problems, if I didn't hit that deer, I would have seen it in theaters. But oh well. So those are my thoughts on the Mission Impossible series as a whole. I'm a huge fan. I have the first 7 movies on DVD, and when 8 finally comes out on DVD, I'm gonna snatch that one up as well. By the way, does anyone know when Sonic 3 is coming out on DVD? Because I want that as well. I can't find it anywhere, and the last thing I got off of eBay was a bootleg set of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and I can tell it's a bootleg because the description on the back has so many grammatical and spelling issues that it made me laugh out loud several times. I don't want a bootleg copy of Sonic 3. I want the official DVD thing. So if you could point me in the direction of the official DVD for Sonic 3, that'd be great. But thank you guys so much for watching. Or it's a podcast, you don't watch or listen. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of TAP, talking about Mission Impossible. Be looking forward to some more videos coming up. I have some fun stuff planned. That Star Wars video that I recorded the other day, I don't know if that's going to go up tomorrow or not, but I do have some matches coming up soon. Be looking forward to some more fun stuff here on TAW Gaming. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys next time. You can, and if you choose not to accept the videos that I make, if it shows up in your subscriber box, and you choose not to accept it, I'll find where you live and make you self-destruct in 5 seconds, you little